Picture a city park at dawn. You've got, retirees moving in this agonizingly slow motion, just shifting their weight through the morning mist.
Yeah, practicing a routine that looks, well, entirely peaceful, like an aesthetic meditative dance.
Exactly. But now, picture those exact same biomechanical movements absolutely dismantling heavily conditioned fighters in a international full contact ring.
Right, which sounds insane. That is the fundamental paradox of Tai Chi.
It really is. I mean, we culturally associate that extreme slowness with a complete lack of martial power.
Sure, we just assume an art form that is, so focused on yielding and softness couldn't possibly survive a violent, unscripted collision with a larger, faster opponent.
But the source material we are diving into today completely shatters that assumption. We're looking at the records and the training curriculum of Cheng Tin Hung's practical Tai Chi style.
Which is fascinating because this is a system that routinely produced fighters who stepped into full contact arenas and just dominated practitioners of other, supposedly harder martial arts.
Yeah, and the mission for this deep dive is to decode that exact contradiction. We're going to walk you through the precise blueprint of how a practitioner evolves from those slow, cooperative morning movements all the way to lightning-fast full-contact combat.
Right, specifically by looking at his 48 Sanshou training method. And as you explore this progression, you'll see that Tai Chi is actually an incredibly structured, ruthlessly scientific approach to biomechanics.
It really is a comprehensive curriculum, right?
Yep.
Designed to sequentially rewire the human nervous system from the ground up. But a nervous system needs a physical chassis to operate within.
Oh, absolutely. Before anyone can throw a strike or, step onto a mat, they have to build a body capable of doing what Tai Chi demands.
Which brings us right into the engine room of the system. We're talking about the conditioning methods known as Nai Gong, or internal Kung Fu.
Yeah, because you cannot just take a standard, unconditioned body, throw it into a ring, and expect it to execute high-level Tai Chi martial applications. The structural demands are just, well, they're too high.
Right. And the sources get highly specific about the required physical adaptations here. They heavily emphasize the Tai Chi force velocity curve, which is super interesting.
It is. I mean, in sports science, human muscles produce the absolute maximum amount of force at zero or very slow velocities.
Like a power lifter grinding out a maximal deadlift or pushing a stalled car up a slight incline.
Exactly. The movement is slow because the load is immense. But on the other end of the curve, at maximum velocity, your actual force delivery drops off.
So true Tai Chi power, what the texts refer to as Jin, isn't generated by simply swinging a limb as fast as you possibly can.
No, not at all. It is about structural sequencing. You are organizing all the major muscle groups, tendons, and bones to fire efficiently along a single geometric vector.
So you're aligning your physical structure so perfectly that you amplify your force potential far beyond just your baseline muscular strength.
Right, and to build that specific type of power, the training relies on targeted resistance. The curriculum actually dictates holding structural postures with light to moderate resistance for prolonged periods.
To build that really deep muscular endurance, right? But they also apply heavier resistance to those exact same static postures.
They do, because applying a heavy load to a structural alignment increases the rate of force development. That's the neurological ability to recruit maximum muscle fibers in just a fraction of a second.
Which is literally the definition of explosive power. And we see this applied directly in the Nai Gong sets. The sources detail a curriculum of 12 yin and 12 yang exercises.
Yeah, with names like Jade Rabbit, Elephant Chick's Trunk, and Swallow Piercing Clouds.
I love those names.
Yeah.
But the biomechanics of these exercises are fascinating.
Yeah.
The emphasis is not on how much weight you can move, but on developing what they call natural tension.
Right, and the distinction between natural tension and dead tension is basically the core of internal conditioning.
Because when a human being anticipates physical impact, our instinctive reaction is just to brace, right? We flex everything.
Exactly, creating this rigid wall of muscle. The sources call that dead tension. And biomechanically, dead tension means your antagonist muscles are fighting your agonist muscles.
So you're literally putting the brakes on your own movement.
You are, which makes you incredibly slow and honestly easily manipulated by an opponent.
Wow. So natural tension's completely different then. It requires you to use the precise, minimal amount of muscular engagement needed to maintain a skeletal posture, while keeping the rest of the tissue completely relaxed.
Yes. You are supporting the outer form from the inside. The muscles are under immense isometric pressure, yet the limbs remain physically soft.
And that creates a really profound fascial adaptation. The connective tissue network running through the body actually thickens and becomes highly elastic.
You're essentially turning the human body into a tensegrity structure. It's held together by continuous elastic tension rather than rigid stacked compression.
There's actually a really great analogy from the texts that illustrates why this specific type of elastic relaxation is so superior for generating speed.
Oh, the stick and the rope analogy. I love this one.
Yeah. So imagine holding a thick, rigid wooden stick in your left hand and a heavy, flexible rope in your right. If you whip both of them through the air with the exact same amount of shoulder rotation, what happens?
The end of the flexible rope is going to travel significantly faster and strike with way more kinetic energy than the end of the wooden stick.
Exactly. Does this mean the extreme relaxation in Neigong is actually a physics hack to generate whipping speed?
Yes, absolutely. The softness of the rope allows for a compounding whipping action. In a rigid stick, the energy just travels in a flat line.
But in a rope, the wave of kinetic energy accelerates as it moves toward the tip.
Right. By systematically stripping away that dead tension through Neigong, the practitioner stops moving like a rigid wooden stick.
The removal of that antagonist muscle co-contraction allows the fascia to stretch and recoil. You're biomechanically hacking the human limb to store and release kinetic energy, exactly like a heavy whip.
And beyond just speed, this internal conditioning builds an incredibly dense structural integrity. The repetitive isometric loading increases bone mineral density, thickens the tendons, and fortifies the joints.
Which is an absolute prerequisite for surviving the blunt force trauma of the later combat stages, right?
Oh, for sure. Without that Neigong engine, the entire system would just collapse under the pressure of a real fight.
But having structural power is completely useless if you can't deliver that kinetic energy into a target that is, actively trying to avoid you or actively trying to destroy your balance.
Right, so once the body is conditioned, how do you translate that to hitting a moving target? You don't just jump into a ring, you have to build a bridge.
And in Chang Tin Hung's system, that bridge is Tui Shou, or push hands. This is where the training paradigm shifts from solo biomechanics to the fundamental combat philosophy of Tai Chi, that the opponent is hard and I am soft.
Exactly. Push hands is specifically designed to develop listening energy, which is known as tingjin. In this context, listening is a pure form of tactile sensitivity.
Because the practitioners maintain continuous physical contact with each other's forearms.
Yes. And through that point of contact, they train their nervous system to map the opponent's center of gravity. You are learning to feel their balance, detect microscopic shifts in their weight distribution, and actually sense their kinetic intention.
Before their brain even fully commits to the strike. It's essentially extending your own proprioception into someone else's body.
That's a great way to put it.
The best way to visualize the mechanics of push hands for you listening, it's like learning how to drive a manual transmission car.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this.
Right. Because when you're first learning to drive a stick shift, you don't merge onto a busy highway. You sit in an empty parking lot, slowly letting your foot off the clutch to find the exact bite point.
That precise, millimeter-specific moment where the engine engages with the gears. The engagement point is where the transfer of power happens.
Exactly. Push hands is the process of finding the bite point of your opponent's balance. You're constantly probing and testing their structure without the chaotic threat of a high-speed crash.
You're searching for the exact angle where their skeletal alignment becomes vulnerable, and this laboratory operates on a strict, progressive curriculum. It begins with fixed-step push hands.
Utilizing routines like the 4 primary directions, elbow, and leaning. The feet are rooted to the floor.
Right. The practitioner is intentionally constrained, forced to neutralize incoming force purely by rotating the waist, softening the chest, and yielding the structure.
And once the nervous system adapts to neutralizing force in a static position, the training graduates to moving step push hands.
Which is where the texts introduce footwork patterns like the 9-palace step, the 7-star step, and the large rollback.
So you're taking that tactile sensitivity, maintaining it while both bodies are dynamically shifting across a space.
Yeah. And throughout both the fixed and moving phases, the core objective is to refine the 8 powers of Tai Chi. These are ward off, rollback, press, push, pluck, split, elbow, and shoulder strike.
And these are often misunderstood as mere blocking techniques, right? But they are actually specific vectors of physical force applied against the opponent's structure.
Absolutely. Let's look at 2 of the most fundamental powers, pang or ward off, and lu or rollback. Peng is not just raising an arm to stop a punch.
It's the creation of an expanding outward sphere of pressure, isn't it?
Right. You use your skeletal alignment to wedge into the opponent's space, disrupting their root by forcing their center of mass upward.
And Lu or rollback is the exact opposite vector. Instead of wedging outward, you create a sudden structural void.
Exactly. When the opponent commits their kinetic energy forward, you yield and guide that exact vector past their base of support. You are allowing them to fall into an empty space, using their own momentum to destroy their balance.
That is so cool. And the overarching mandate in this laboratory is the principle of sticking, following, and not letting go.
Because you are training the nervous system so deeply that when the actual violence begins, your conscious thinking brain is completely bypassed.
Your tactile reflexes automatically track and control the opponent's center of gravity. But mastering balance and leverage is critical, sure, but a real altercation involves blunt force trauma.
Yeah, eventually you have to learn how to deal with an incoming fist.
Right. And this is the threshold where we transition into the true core of Cheng Tinhung's practical fighting system, the 48 San Shou, or free sparring methods.
This is the curriculum that extracts those violent, highly effective martial applications hidden within the slow morning form.
And the San Shou progression is broken down into 3 really rigid stages. It begins with Zuo Shu, which translates to familiarizing yourself with the moves. The texts explicitly compare this phase to a game of chess.
Right, because you cannot play chess alone. Stage 1 is an entirely cooperative, highly choreographed chess match.
The training partner, who is frequently the instructor, feeds a realistic but strictly controlled attack, like a straight right hand or a looping hook.
And the defender then executes the specific Tai Chi deflection, completely neutralizing the attack, and follows up with the corresponding counterstrike.
But there is a non-negotiable rule governing stage 1, right? It is strictly point to stop.
Yes, the defender throws the counterstrike with proper mechanics, but halts the fist exactly 1 inch before it makes contact with the partner's body.
And every single sequence within the 48 methods must be drilled thousands of times, meticulously on both the left and right sides.
The repetitive nature of stage 1 requires immense discipline, and honestly, it often draws criticism.
Oh, I can imagine. It's probably the most common critique leveled against traditional martial arts. I mean, I have to push back a little bit on behalf of you listening.
Go for it.
If you spend hundreds of hours programming your nervous system to literally stop your punch right before it lands on a target, aren't you just hardwiring hesitation?
It's a fair question.
Like, how do you move past this highly choreographed dance and survive a real physical confrontation where hesitation means getting knocked unconscious?
Right. That is a highly logical concern, but it misunderstands the neurological purpose of the exercise. Stage 1 is not about replicating a fight. It is an exercise in pure neuroplasticity.
Okay, so laying down the correct pathways.
Exactly. The goal is myelination. When a human being performs a complex biomechanical sequence like yielding to a heavy hook, stepping off the center line, and delivering a counterstrike, the brain has to fire thousands of electrical signals in a highly specific sequence.
And initially, that sequence is super clumsy. The signals are fighting through a lot of neurological noise.
Right. The conscious brain is trying to manage balance, spatial awareness, and just the sheer survival instinct of having a fist flying at your face.
So by removing the threat of impact and performing the movement cooperatively with a point-to-stop rule, you eliminate that flinch response.
Precisely. The nervous system can wrap myelin sheaths around that specific neural circuit without interference. The more you run the circuit cleanly, the thicker the insulation becomes and the faster the signal travels.
Wow. So you are not training hesitation at all. You are permanently embedding the optimal biomechanical pathway into the lower brainstem.
Exactly. And once that neural circuit is fully insulated and the movement requires zero conscious thought, the safety parameters are removed.
The training wheels come off. The practitioner graduates to stage 2 of the San Shou method, which is known as fast and contact.
And the cooperative dance ends immediately. Speed is radically increased to match real-world velocity.
And at this level of myelination, the texts note that a practitioner's neurological reflexes are so deeply ingrained, they can instinctively deflect 8 or 9 out of 10 attacks without any conscious processing.
Which is incredible. A deflection rate of 80 or 90% against full speed strikes is just an astonishing statistical advantage.
And because the defensive reflexes are so highly reliable, the counterstrikes are no longer pulled.
Right. The point-to-stop rule is discarded entirely. The punches are actually driven fully into the opponent's body.
So why don't they just destroy each other in this phase?
Well, the only reason they survive is because of that Nigong engine we talked about at the very beginning.
Ah, the fascial elasticity and the bone density.
Exactly. That deep structural alignment allows the body to absorb and disperse the impact safely.
So the tactical objective in stage 2 shifts from mere survival to achieving absolute positional dominance.
Right. The texts describe this state with a really brilliant phrase. I am smooth, the opponent is awkward.
I love that. Biomechanically, smooth versus awkward means your center of mass is perfectly settled over your base of support, your breathing is regulated, and your kinetic chains are aligned.
While the opponent, meanwhile, has had their force redirected, their center of mass is pitched past their toes, their posture is broken, and their structure is utterly compromised.
You've utilized the tactile sensitivity of push hands, the myelinated reflexes of stage 1, and the dense power of Neigong to place yourself in a position where you can deliver maximum force and they can deliver none.
Exactly. Stage 2 builds the timing and impact, but Stage 3 is the deep end of the pool.
This is full contact, real combat. The structure is completely unscripted now.
Right. The teacher no longer feeds predictable single strikes. They launch violent, stormy, continuous attacks designed to mimic the chaos of an enraged, highly aggressive enemy.
Stage 3 is the ultimate stress test of the entire system. It's designed to induce a massive adrenaline dump.
And the sources outline several foundational tactical rules for surviving this chaos. The first is a stark acknowledgement of physical reality. No martial art is invincible, only speed is invincible.
Which brings us right back to the physics of the flexible rope. The relaxation built through years of Neigong allows the limbs to whip faster than an opponent trapped in dead panic tension.
Because the text demands that the practitioner maintain profound psychological stillness. Panic triggers a spike in cortisol and adrenaline, which immediately degrades fine motor skills.
And forces the body into rigid, dead tension. If you tense up, you lose your fascial elasticity, your tactile sensitivity is blinded, and your biomechanical advantage evaporates.
Right. So maximum efficiency becomes paramount. The guidelines dictate that a practitioner must not throw empty punches.
Because striking air drains the gas tank rapidly. If kinetic energy is expended, it must violently connect with the target.
And to manage this extreme energetic output, the curriculum requires hyperconditioning. The psychological stress of real combat drains the body exponentially faster than a sterile workout.
The texts even state that if a practitioner is preparing for a 3-round tournament, their physiological gas tank must be conditioned to endure 5 intense rounds.
The psychological shift required to operate at this level is just staggering.
It really is. I mean, executing perfect biomechanics in a quiet room is an accomplishment. But executing those same mechanics seamlessly, while a larger, highly aggressive human being is actively trying to separate you from your consciousness, that requires an entirely different neurological state.
Absolutely.
So the ultimate goal of all that slow, peaceful morning practice is actually the construction of a mind capable of perfect stillness inside a violent, chaotic storm.
Yes. The slow practice builds the resilient physical chassis and the baseline psychological calm. You cannot learn how to process panic while someone is actively hitting you.
Right, you have to build a neurological architecture in the quiet.
But you must then take that architecture and aggressively stress test it in the crucible of Stage 3. And within Cheng Tin Hong's text, there's actually a final, highly pragmatic, ethical capstone regarding the use of these skills.
Oh, right. What does it say?
The text insists that any practitioner who has survived the crucible of Stage 3 and possesses these devastating full contact capabilities must cultivate high moral character.
So it's not just an abstract religious ideal, but a practical necessity.
Exactly. The ultimate objective of mastering combat is to possess such an overwhelming capacity for violence that fear is eliminated from your baseline psychology.
Because when you are no longer afraid, you have the luxury of de-escalation. You can simply walk away.
Yes. The 48 Sand Show are only to be unleashed when avoidance is impossible, and you are absolutely forced to protect human life.
It perfectly embodies that ancient axiom, that it is infinitely better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Having the capacity is what guarantees the peace.
Tracing the architecture of this curriculum really completely redefines what we're looking at. We started in the engine room, breaking down the slow, isometric conditioning of Neigong, exploring how the body structurally adapts from a rigid stick into a dense, highly elastic rip.
And then we crossed the bridge of push hands analyzing the biomechanics of mapping an opponent's balance, and learning to redirect force vectors through pure tactile sensitivity.
From there, we moved into the meticulous neuroplasticity of Stage 1 Sanshou, using slow, point-to-stop repetition to permanently insulate those correct combat reflexes.
And finally, we removed the safety parameters, accelerating into the unscripted, full-contact reality of Stages 2 and 3, where years of yielding and softness are translated into explosive, devastating speed and positional dominance.
It entirely recontextualizes that serene image of the morning park routine. You are literally watching a highly scientific operating system being installed.
You really are.
And it leaves you with a principle that applies far beyond the realm of physical combat. I mean, we live in a society that is deeply impatient. We idolize the concept of diving straight into the deep end, figuring it out under fire, and prioritizing immediate chaotic action over structured preparation.
Oh, constantly.
But looking at the genius of Ching-Tin Hung's methodology poses a really critical question for you listening. When facing the most high-pressure, unscripted, full-contact situations in our own lives, whether that's navigating a high-stakes corporate negotiation, executing a massive creative endeavor, or just managing an unpredictable personal crisis, maybe the secret to surviving the storm isn't frantic action.
Right. Mastery demands the quiet, unglamorous work of building the architecture before the storm arrives.
Exactly. The secret is rooted in our willingness to spend hundreds of hours in the slow, meticulous, hyper-cooperative Stage 1 of learning. So the next time you see footage of those practitioners moving with agonizing slowness, do not mistake it for leisure. Instead, ask yourself, what slow, methodical practice are you currently skipping in your own life that is keeping you from true mastery?
Well, that's it. Because it's so useful.
Yeah.
And obviously you can also do that one that way. So say I've got that one thing, and I've got this one. Pop up. Yeah. So you can use this one. And it's a matter of like getting that bone going through.
Yeah.
So, and then you can use it in so many places. Yeah. See, like there. Yes, you do that thing, and then drive the bone up through. Yeah. And exactly that right vector. Just through there. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Neck to the spine.
No, that's control.
That's the thing, like if the guy stops, you can't do it. So obviously, that's always the key thing in Tai Chi, like just following force. Whenever you put pressure in there, just follow it, stick and follow. And if nothing else, just stick and follow, just train sticking and following. That's it. But obviously in the beginning, guys, especially strong guys, they always stiffen out. But the Tai Chi is a battle against that.
Let's go there.
Well, we like
Anyone wants to try in?
Yeah, nice.
We're doing like 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just subconscious.
Well,
Once you start getting tired.
You go there.
Once you've trained all the time.
I think there's some phrases in the classics that are quite interesting.
Yeah.
Carve and carve again into
Yeah.
the shin.
Yeah.
It's the way it has to do everything. So say you do full erection. Okay, you do full erection, Okay. But how many guys are really programming themselves to, okay, when that force comes,
Relax into it.
Are you truly programming that new force, while keeping a stable center of mass? See what I mean? And then the palm around, then the really still. As long as, if you just keep forcing yourself to do it,
And relax into it.
and then I think it just does become a second nature thing. Eventually.
Yeah.
But so many guys, they don't have trust. I think there's a trust in there. You've got to really trust that softness.
Yeah.
And that you can go over here and be okay. You know what I mean?
Mentally, you understand it. It's just having it just come reflex. Instantly, just relax into it.
Again, I think all the exercises, the drills, got to be done with a lot of focus.
Intent.
And then all this stuff when you freestyle it out, like sometimes, like as you myself, sometimes I'll just like play in a semi-bad position and just practice what I can do, you know, and what doesn't put me into a ridiculously bad position. See there, like, I didn't do anything except just follow the course. And then it got me in a decent position and then something popped up. It was like, nice. Nothing to do with me, just the theory. See what I mean? Right. I think it's good pushes so that you get and then, you know, also like from within there, you can start to just think about all the different shapes, kind of forms. You know, like the all the different shapes. And just start to integrate them into that evening and following, and then when you're doing the self-defense stuff, just keep trying to link the thing.
Yeah, it's just trying to get that relaxation and movement.
Again, a lot of form, carefully done, a lot of leg on, again, carefully done. It'll get your body moving right away out of the base and all that. You do that stuff? It's very time consuming. For the modern person, I had a job. I remember that when I was like, when I got like a couple of hours left in the day, and what you do, you know?
Wednesdays, I'm trying to get back Monday to train. So, my wife's working, so this is what we're talking about.
See that one? You can definitely do that. Put your hands there,
It doesn't feel,
So that'll be like the really sort of stuff.
it doesn't feel, it feels defensive. It doesn't seem to feel like there's many options.
You can come from. So that's one thing that people really don't use a lot. Well, is the forearm and shoulder stuff. Shoulder, but also like doing handstands and stuff. You start to really get. You see what I mean? A good sense of using it in a 3D way. And it's super useful. You can use it. You were very soft there. That's good. But still to the like that one, you can start pushing down on them. Get the shoulder. It's good. Also, when your hand down here, you know what I mean? It's there. You know, once your forearm that way, squat.
You know also the thing about the hands. If you, first of all, there's no teaching.
It's a thing. That's how we learn the dance, right? I think from doing a lot of the drills and the movement patterns, if you do enough of it, then things just start moving out. Some guys maybe in that format naturally figure things out quite well. Some don't. There wasn't really a structure. Funny enough, in Hong Kong, I think it was straight away. You have a much more definitive structure in place for showing you different forces and how to use them in fix that really useful.
It's complicated. You know, it's trying to eventually,
Yeah. Yeah, they'll show you today, maybe next month, maybe not.
Yeah.
And it is, the time and place is so useful as well.
It's always comical because
I do think there's so much value, sometimes just isolating out certain skills like that. See what I mean? That squeezing power, just okay, let me get that working. Okay, on and try.
it's that feeling of when pushes.
Yeah.
Just feels like a crush. It's quite much.
It's a way of force. Yeah. A reasonably skilled that's a challenge, right? So when you get it in the right time and place, just surprising things that you can't when they are so it could be on the arm, it could be on the anything, right? Well, that's the basic one. You want to go to left, you go right, especially strong guys, you know, they're always resisting. They can't help themselves, and then oh, resistance.
One tendency.
Okay.
I really like check.
I think you form super soft, just so useful.
So the lower one, so if you're not ready, the lower one, I was to do that. It's all good. I would put my hands much higher. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now we need it. Okay. And you play. Need to do the same hands. Yeah.
Yeah, then once you swing it, then we'll yeah. You would hit it, right? More soft. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ken, have you ever seen Dexter? Okay, there's a guy, the Chinese guy in there, yeah, called Vince Masuka, and you laughed exactly like him there. It's classic. It's a great series, man. Worth watching.
So much to watch. That's what we do. The next month will be next. Yeah. That's actually unaffected. Oh, really? Yeah. Very difficult from there. It means you can't really bet what you're physically. Yeah, but if it's slowly, if you apply pressure on something, yeah. Also, when you train to do oh, it's an actor. Yeah.
Finds out the pose of your opponent.
Yeah.
Right then, so
Ooh, it's low.
yeah, you can use your Oh, I'm sure it's all great to do. I don't come
That's probably when you're proper developer, you just think. Repeat. Yeah, exactly. There's no flow, there's no. You work with robotics? Oh, I've looked into it. It's crazy how I'm doing that. Yeah. It's, they've got a robot that can actually make a sandwich. I can't eat it. I wouldn't trust the sandwich it makes. Yeah, I have no idea if it was off the but the fact that the thing that you can actually say, you sandwich. What's the thing about it? Two slices of bread, a bit of cheese. Can it slice on those different modes? Would you trust it with a knife? I don't know. Would you trust it in your house? Would you trust the robot with a knife? I do think they're going to be